Wah! Bro, what are you doing? What do you mean what I'm doing? Calling the wah! It's the movement phase. You don't call the wah in the movement phase. Wah! Dude, it's the shooting phase. You don't call the wah in the shooting phase. I don't? Why not? When do I call it? Command phase. That's when you call the wah. Oh, I didn't know that. Wah! I did good, right? I did good. It's the command phase. Yes, but it's not our command phase. It's the opponent's command phase. So no involts? No involts. Shit. Hello and welcome to another Tactical Doctrine episode. In today's video, we will be talking about the importance of the command phase, what to look out for, what mistakes to avoid, and how to manage your resources to master the phases later on. And we will do so with real-life 40k miniatures on an actual tabletop. Will we though? Why do I need actual miniatures to display for the command phase? Well, we'll see. My name's Damien Cooper, and welcome to High Stakes 40k, where we are all in on Warhammer. We already talked about how to master your deployment as well as how to master your shooting phase. So naturally, now we go through all the other phases. Today, we will be talking about the command phase, but next up, we will go to the movement phase, the charge phase, as well as the fight phase. So make sure to hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell. No, seriously, hit the subscribe button. Even though today's video will be on the shorter side, because the command phase should generally be one of the shortest phases in the game, it is still a very important one. Because what you do in the command phase dictates what you do in all the other phases later on, or even later turns. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, the tactics, and all the mistakes that a lot of players make and how to avoid them, let's break down the command phase. Timing is important, so let's break down the command phase and what happens first. Generally speaking, we have 4 things to look out for when it comes to the command phase. Things that happen at the start of the command phase, things that happen in the command phase, then the battle shock step, and then things that happen at the end of the command phase. At the very start of each command phase, every player gets 1 command point. Unless one of your units or models has an ability that you gain an extra one, everybody gets 1 command point. If you're playing tactical missions, at the start of the command phase, you draw your secondary missions. This is usually the first thing that happens when you enter the command phase. Then there are some army-specific abilities that also trigger at the start of the command phase. If you're playing orcs, at the start of the command phase, you decide if you want to call the wah or not. If you're playing Space Marines, this is when you pick your Oath of Moment target. If there are multiple triggers happen at the same time, for instance drawing your secondaries or picking your Oath of Moment target, you as the controlling player can actually decide which one to pick first. So here we are obviously drawing our secondary cards first so that we know what we need to oath or if we want to call the wah, for example. Then we will resolve all the abilities that happen in the command phase. One example would be a Death Guard Talisman to roll to see if you get an extra command point. Another one would be Astra Militarum's Guard Orders, or for Chaos Knights in the Infernal Lance detachment to do your surge moves. This right here is probably the most important part of the command phase, because this is really important for planning out your future turns, but I will get to this a little later. Then after you have resolved all the things that happen in the command phase, we go to the battle shock step. And this is important, because the battle shock step happens after the start of the command phase and everything that happens in the command phase. So here you can do all your little things that you need to do, plan out your turn, and then you see if you're getting battle shocked or not. And this is also interesting for some stratagems. So if you have a stratagem that happens at the start of the command phase or in the command phase, you can still target your unit before the battle shock step. Here I have a really big advice for you when it comes to the battle shock step. Don't let yourself get bullied into rolling battle shock tests too early. Because I've seen this so many times, where your command phase comes around and your opponent is immediately, you owe me a battle shock test over here, you owe me a battle shock test over there, then you of course, then you start rolling battle shocks. But this happens after you draw your secondaries and after you resolve all of your things that happens in the command phase. And this could be very important because we want to plan out our turn. Do we need this unit to actually do some actions? Do we need to score this objective very badly? Or doesn't it matter because we have multiple units on that objective anyway? And then we might use a stratagem called Insane Bravery. Because a lot of the times I see people roll the battle shock test and then they fail it and then they realize, oh no, I should have actually used Insane Bravery because this was really important. And here you obviously can't ask for a take back either, because if you would have passed the battle shock test, you would have never considered using Insane Bravery. But now that you know that you failed it, you can't use Insane Bravery after the fact. Now in the battle shock step, we resolve all of our battle shock tests and then we get to the end of the command phase. Here, a very important core stratagem that a lot of players like to use is the New Order stratagem, and it lets you redraw one of your secondary cards. But it is important that this happens at the end of the command phase, meaning after all your battle shocks, as well as after everything that happens at the start or in your command phase. So for example, a mistake that I see a lot of players make is they draw their secondary cards, they don't like one of them, they immediately redraw, and then they just start picking their oath targets or rolling their battle shock tests. And this is not allowed. As a Space Marine player, for example, you need to pick your Oath of Moment target before you redraw a secondary. Otherwise, you could just wait, see what other secondary you get, and if you get something like no prisoners, for example, you just oath the unit that is easiest to kill. You can't just redraw a secondary and then see if you need the extra movement to then use the move order of some of your units to actually get to where you need to go according to the secondary you just redraw. Redrew. Have redrawn. You know what I mean. But this is also for your advantage because it happens after the battle shock step. So now you actually know which one of your units are eligible to do an action or are eligible to score secondary cards. So for example, if your unit battle shocks, then you can't do a certain secondary anymore. Then you can decide to actually use the New Order stratagem to redraw the secondary card. So now that we talked about all the triggers and we know what happens when, let's actually talk about how to use your command phase. The main thing that we need to do in our command phase is plan out our future turns. One thing that is very important here is our command point management. Here we really need to think about how many command points do we need for our future turn, and not just our turn, but also the opponent's turn. Do we need some really important stratagems? Do we need a command point to redraw a secondary that we can score? Or do we need something like a charge reroll if we're a combat focused army? Furthermore, here we can also plan what happens in our opponent's turn. As a combat army, for example, we usually always want to have between 2 and 4 command points. Because then, if they're playing a combat army as well, and we know that they're going to charge multiple of our units, we usually want to have 2 command points to use the counteroffensive stratagem to then interrupt and maybe kill a unit before they can kill us. Same goes for a stratagem like Fight on Death, for example. Having the 2 command points for this is actually crucial in some matchups. And I would even go as far that this is sometimes more important than scoring some secondary cards. Did we draw a secondary card that we could in theory score, but ditching it at the end of our turn might be more beneficial because we would gain a command point that might actually help us more than just drawing 2 or 3 points. And this is something that we need to plan for in our command phase already. Because if we start moving out all of our models with the intent of actually scoring a secondary and then realizing, wait, I actually rather have the command point to then fight on death in my opponent's turn, then we might just completely mess up our movement phase. So here, sometimes managing your command points is more important than scoring secondaries. Speaking of secondaries, this is also a very big part of our command phase, and we need to plan for what we want to score in our turn. A lot of the times I see players rush over this. They draw some secondaries, they think, yeah, I can score them, and then they immediately go to their movement phase. And then after they already started moving models, they realize, maybe I can't. Maybe this unit can't get to this objective that it actually needs to go to. Maybe this unit can go behind enemy lines, but it actually does have a better job somewhere else. Or maybe you just don't have the action economy in your units to actually successfully score all your secondaries. So here I suggest take a couple minutes and really plan out your turn. What secondaries do you have? What is actually feasible and possible in your turn, and can you actually score them? And if you can't, don't feel bad about it. and maybe actually redraw one of those. And if you need the command points, then also keep in mind that this is a secondary that you can score, put it aside, and concentrate on the more important things. The last thing the command phase is for is planning and making strategic decisions. The command phase is the perfect moment to plan out your turn ahead. Just take 2, 3, maybe even 5 minutes and plan everything in your head. In your command phase, you don't have to physically do anything else. So you can just take your time and plan everything. Because if you already started moving models, activating them, shooting with them, charging something, it will probably be too late. So here, just take your time and make decisions. Is this your go turn? Because then your secondaries might not even matter. Maybe you don't want to do an action on an objective because you rather do the damage and do some crippling, devastating damage to your opponent's army to stop them from playing the game. Maybe it's not your go turn. Then just set some goals for your turn. What do you need to accomplish? Where do you want your units to be? What do you want the board state to be at the end of your turn? And do you need to flip some primary points from your opponent? Are there some units that you really need to kill? And maybe do a little bit of math hammer in your head if you do have enough resources to actually achieve those goals. Alright, there you have it. We learned all the timing triggers that are important in the command phase. We also got some good advice on which steps we really need to focus on when it comes to the command phase. So now we are prepared to go into the movement phase, which is going to be a future video. And at the end of the video, as always, I like to thank all of my Patreon and YouTube members to help make this dream possible, to maybe do this full-time one day and just create high quality 40k tactic videos. And if you also want to support the cause, then maybe consider signing up to either my Patreon, which is in the description below, or become a YouTube member. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, then please give it a thumbs up because it really helps the channel grow. Also subscribe to the channel to see future videos, especially the movement phase that is coming up probably by the end of the month. And I hope to see you on the next one here on High Stakes 40k, where we are all in on Warhammer.